You just heard the sound of a bubble bursting. For an entire season, we were told a story about the WNBA's explosive, unprecedented growth, a tidal wave of new interest lifting the entire league to new heights. But when the dust settled and the championship was on the line, the league's marquee event was met with a deafening silence. What happened at the 2025 WNBA Finals wasn't just low attendance, it was a brutal, public market correction that exposed the lie at the heart of the league's success story. And the players, the very stars who were promised the spotlight, were left abandoned in the dark with one of the league's biggest names, A'ja Wilson, left to explode in frustration. Today, we're going to connect the dots between those $35 finals tickets, the furious reaction from the players on the court, and the hard economic truth about Caitlin Clark's real value. This is the story of how the finals disaster proved the WNBA isn't just in trouble, it's fundamentally broken. If you believe it like we do, that the story behind the story is what really matters, show your support and smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track and fuels our next investigation into the narratives the league would rather keep hidden. All right, let's set the scene properly, because the reality of what happened is even worse than the headlines suggest. This was the 2025 WNBA Finals, the pinnacle of the sport, featuring the powerhouse Las Vegas Aces and the resilient Phoenix Mercury. It was supposed to be a celebration, the culmination of a historic season. Instead, it became a crime scene. The alarm bells started ringing when fans and analysts noticed something deeply wrong with the ticket market. For a championship series, you'd expect nosebleed seats to cost a small fortune. But for Game 1 in Las Vegas, prices didn't just drop, they cratered. Verified ticket sites showed seats going for as low as $35. Social media was even more brutal, with viral posts claiming you could get into the building for as little as $6. The images that followed were a public relations nightmare. Swathes of empty seats were visible in every broadcast shot. What was meant to be the league's crowning achievement looked like a ghost town, and the people who felt that embarrassment most acutely were the superstars on the floor. This wasn't just an abstract problem for the league office. It was a visceral, personal humiliation for the athletes who had fought their entire careers to reach that moment. For any narrative analyst or us watching, you have to slow down the tape and focus on the faces of the stars. Take A'ja Wilson, the four-time MVP and the face of the Aces. Sources described how during warm-ups, as she looked around at the vast sea of empty red seats, she was seen muttering to herself in pure disbelief. This is the finals. It wasn't arrogance. It was the shock of a champion realizing the championship didn't matter to the people who were supposed to be there. Her frustration was palpable. After the game, she spoke with a quiet intensity that was almost more damning than a scream. "We're playing some of the best basketball out there," she said, "but it's like nobody's watching." That one sentence captured the horrifying disconnect. They were delivering a world-class performance in a vacuum, but while Wilson's reaction was one of stunned disappointment, Phoenix Mercury veteran DeWanna's was pure, unfiltered rage. She didn't hold back. In her post-game interview, she didn't just answer questions. She launched a missile at the league and the absent fan base. "You work your entire career for moments like this," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, "and you just hope people care enough to show up." Then, she delivered the line that became the emotional core of this entire disaster. It's disrespect, awful. We are worthy of crowded arenas. Let that sink in. This wasn't just frustration over a bad turnout. This was the raw sound of betrayal. These athletes had been sold a promise of growth, respect, and a league on the rise. They were told their hard work was finally paying off, that the world was finally watching. And in the single most important moment of their season, they looked up and realized it was all a lie. Their explosion wasn't just about empty seats. It was about a broken promise. That raw emotion from A'ja Wilson and DeWanna is the critical clue. To understand their fury, you have to understand the story they were told and the one we were all told. But now it's time to filter out the noise and connect the dots, because their betrayal wasn't caused by a single night of bad marketing. It was caused by the sudden, violent bursting of the Caitlin Clark bubble. Let's be clear, the WNBA's historic 2025 season was not a story of systemic growth. It was the story of a singular phenomenon. For months, Caitlin Clark was a one-woman economic engine, selling out arenas, shattering viewership records, and bringing in tens of millions of new fans. The league benefited from the tidal wave of attention, and they sold a narrative that this Caitlin Clark effect was a rising tide lifting all boats. The finals proved that was a fantasy. The proof is in the cold, hard numbers. The league's championship series, featuring two incredible teams and multiple MVP-level talents, couldn't sell a ticket for more than the price of a pizza. Meanwhile, the overwhelming consensus among analysts, fans, and insiders is that if Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever had been in that same arena, those $35 tickets would have been worth over $300. This is the brutal truth the finals exposed. Caitlin Clark's value isn't just additive to the WNBA, it's not a bonus. For this new, massive casual audience, her value is foundational. The dominant narrative that exploded across social media wasn't about the Aces or the Mercury. It was simply, no Clark, no crowd. The league mistook the gravity of a single superstar for the sustainable health of an entire solar system. And when that star was removed from the equation, the whole thing collapsed into a black hole of empty seats and broken promises. This wasn't an off night. This was a market correction, and it revealed a terrifying dependency that puts the entire future of the league in question. So where was the league's leadership while their championship event was imploding on the world stage? Unfortunately, they were becoming the punchline. The face of this institutional failure was Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. She became the focal point of the controversy after a moment that was clipped and memed across every social media platform, her walking out of the arena upon seeing the shockingly sparse crowd. Whether it was a moment of frustration, embarrassment, or simply bad timing, it didn't matter. The image became a powerful symbol for a leader who was completely disconnected from the reality of her own league. This single moment crystallized a narrative that has been simmering for months among players and fans, that the commissioner is tone-deaf and disengaged from their concerns. When a player union VP like Nafisa Collier is on record stating the league has the finest players, but endures the poorest leadership imaginable, you know the problem is systemic. The empty seats weren't just a fan problem. They were a direct reflection of a crisis in leadership. But the story doesn't end there. Okay, now we're officially getting into rumor territory, but this is a theory that many of you have been pointing out on Reddit and social media for years, and it's critical to understanding the full picture. The question is, what if the attendance is always worse than it looks? There is widespread speculation that the league has a long-running practice of artificially inflating its attendance numbers. The theory suggests that thousands of corporate or club-level parked seats are often counted as sold, even when they remain empty, and that free ticket giveaways are used to fill venues just enough to look presentable on camera. The finals disaster, according to this theory, wasn't just a failure to sell tickets, it was a failure so catastrophic that even these alleged tricks couldn't hide the truth. The ghost town was so empty, it accidentally exposed a secret the league has been trying to keep for years. So what do you think? Was this a one-time failure driven by Clark's absence, or did the finals accidentally expose a much bigger lie about the WNBA's real attendance numbers? Let me know your theory in the comments. Now, some might point to one piece of data as a sign of hope: the television ratings. And it's true. Game 1 pulled in a massive 1.9 million viewers, up 62% from the previous year, and the highest for a finals opener since 1997. But as any narrative analyst knows, a single number without context is a dangerous thing. That rating wasn't a sign of the league's health, it was the phantom limb of the Caitlin Clark effect. It was the echo of a season-long habit, where casual fans tuned in out of curiosity one last time, only to be met with an event that had no energy and no soul. The catastrophic failure to sell a single $35 ticket is the real metric, because it proves that without Clark, there is no deep, passionate, or financial commitment from this new audience. And that brings us to the devastating fallout. This public humiliation couldn't have come at a worse time, as the league and its players are heading into high-stakes negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement. For months, we've heard players rightfully demanding a larger share of the revenue and better conditions. But now, the owners have been handed the perfect weapon. They can simply point to the images of that empty arena in Las Vegas and argue that the market has spoken. The players' demands for more money are now set against the brutal visual evidence that the league, without its one transcendent star, cannot even sell out its own championship. A'ja Wilson's explosion of frustration was real and justified, but it may also have been a catastrophic strategic error, giving the owners all the proof they need that the players' valuation of the league is completely out of touch with reality. Sabrina Ionescu's reaction was not a petty, emotional outburst. It was the public exposure of a deep and dangerous fracture within the WNBA, a fracture driven by a brand-fueled Cold War, personal jealousy, and a fundamental misunderstanding of economic reality. The empty seats, the player outrage, and the leadership failure are all symptoms of a single or devastating disease. The league mistook the gravity of a once-in-a-generation star for the health of an entire institution. A'ja Wilson's explosion wasn't just about one night of empty seats. It was the raw sound of a superstar realizing the system is broken, and that her value and the value of every other player has been brutally redefined by the absence of a single rookie. The bubble didn't just leak, it burst. And now everyone is left standing in the wreckage. So what's your take on all this? Do you think A'ja Wilson's frustration was a justified cry for respect, or was this a necessary and brutal reality check for the players before they head into negotiations? Let us know your verdict in the comment section below. If you believe the real story is never the official story, and you want to be part of a community that digs deeper, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. We are already deep into our next investigation, and you don't want to be the last to know. And finally, if you know someone who only saw the surface-level drama of this story, share this video. They need to understand the real power plays happening inside the WNBA.